Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.
Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by. Oh my gosh, my camera's off. It's from my show last night, Veteran Nation, and it's been hectic, crazy, you name it. And it's not getting any better. There. Sorry. Anyway, I'm excited to have my guest on tonight, Toby. He is a mayoral candidate in Mankato. And rumor has it he is the last hope for Mankato before it slides further into the abyss. Sounds like it might not have gone well that in the last mayoral campaign. So we'll have him talk about that when he comes on. If you haven't done so yet, you can order coffee from me. You can order merchandise from me. And it's good stuff, by the way, the coffee. It's the best thing you'll ever have. So you got to check it out. You can message me, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, at Robe Regiment on Twitter, TC Pearson on Facebook. You can also find me through email, tcpearson@protonmail.com. I also have my Subscribe Star going, which is Minnesota Black Robe Regiment Podcast. You can find me there. Once again, as I build up a subscriber base on Subscribestar, we will be putting out more exclusive content and maybe even planning up subscriber meets. So whether we do that in person or through a Zoom call or something like that. But yeah, that's what we're working on. So my guest tonight is Toby Leonard. I want to say Leonard because it feels very Greek when I do that. And I had no idea where he was coming from philosophically and worldview wise. I was so excited to be like have somebody come in and just have him be just this off the wall raving lunatic leftist, and then he shows up pre-show with a libertarian shirt on, so at least know a little bit about where he's coming from. That doesn't mean he's not like a raging lunatic that's off the wall, if you know anything about the history of the Libertarian Party, especially in the state of Minnesota. But things are changing in the Libertarian Party, so we're going to bring Toby in and say hello and let him introduce himself. Toby, thanks for doing this tonight.
Hello. Hey, thanks for having me on the show. I'm all excited to be here. Yeah, Toby Leonard, running for Mankato mayor down here in Mankato, Minnesota.
And when he says down here in Mankato, Minnesota, that's up to just about everybody else who could possibly be watching who's not in Minnesota. So it's I have tens and tens of viewers all over the county. So I saw Derek said that he was supporting you for Mankato, and the thing that stood out to me was that he has a big Mises banner on his profile, and I was like, hey, well, this ought to be interesting. Let's find this out, because Mises caucus guys don't tend to rush to support an average candidate. So and then you show up with your your gold and black and Libertarian Party in Minnesota. So that means you're already interconnected. So all the guys, Charles and
oh yes,
and all of them. So how long have you been a libertarian?
Oh wow, I probably date back to the how long have I been a libertarian and how long have I been a member of the party? I've only been the member of the party for the last year or so. But as far as a libertarian, probably goes back to the 80s when I was first reading about libertarians in St. Paul selling gold coins to use as a second currency in silver coins.
Strange thing, libertarians and their reliance on tangible currency.
Oh yes.
crazy. What do they think? That the American dollar is valueless just because it's not based on something substantive?
Correct.
Oh, well, that was a great show. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, yes. Okay,
Um,
well, we'll get it right off the bat. First of all, I am a lunatic. That's okay. Off the wall lunatic. Because actually, this shirt, the Libertarian shirt with the Statue of Liberty and flamethrower, I am actually the cause of that.
so go ahead. Like we started off solid. We might as well keep it going.
Oh yeah, we're already off the wall. A lunatic. As you probably noticed the background, I own a gun shop. We're actually doing this from inside my gun shop. As if you're wondering why I have displays of ammo and stuff on the wall behind me. But when planning on going to the Minnesota Libertarian Convention back in March, April this year, I went ahead and was asked if I'd donate something, and we were trying to figure out what we could donate that did not require background checks or would be legal.
Oh, no, you didn't.
So we donated a flamethrower.
Which era?
Actually, it is a pulse fire, so it's a relatively new one. Runs off of just gasoline, and you can mix diesel fuel to get it a little hotter and a little longer burn time. So yes, we donated a flamethrower to their silent auction.
That should be your campaign tagline. Toby for mayor. Flamethrowers for everyone.
Hey, that would be a great tagline. It would solve a lot of the problems in the city.
Yeah, no kidding. So you own a gun shop?
Yes, I do, down here in Mankato Guns. Well, it's Mankato Guns down here in Mankato. And up there for everybody in any of the other states.
Right. And FFA, obviously.
Yep, FFL, yeah.
Or FFL, excuse me, FFA. I'm rural, future farmers of America, or as I won't make that joke. I have a few farmers and rocks and cows that watch me. So, so you're FFL, and that means that you have had to jump through the ringers and the flaming hoops of everything to be able to help people exercise their constitutionally delineated rights and liberties. That might have something to do with why you maintain your libertarian position.
Oh, yes. Pretty much every month or two, they come up with a new reason why I want to be even more libertarian.
By they, you mean just everyone?
ATF, the FBI, just the general laws that affect this shop are just make me even more cringy. I only a few months ago realized that I branched out into manufacturing. So now we manufacture our own brand of AR-15s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Mankato Guns Cato 15. It's not an AR Cato 15.
It's a Cato 15. Nice.
Yeah.
And you can chamber that in how many different?
Well, you just pop the upper off. You pop the upper off. You can put it in a variety of them depending upon what you want. 410, 300 blackout, 22, 9mm 45. There's a whole variety depending upon what upper you put on there. But yeah, then I find out that, okay, so I'm all ready, price everything out, doing the last final checks and chatting with my ATF agent to verify I have everything in order. And then she's like, and don't forget the excise taxes. Turns out if you manufacture something here in the US and when you bring it to market, you have to pay 11% of it if it's a firearm to the feds. Just flat off the retail price. It's like, wait, they didn't have any part of this. Why do they get 11%? So,
well, because revenue generation.
Oh, yes, exactly. I have to do all the work. I have to file all the paperwork, and I have to do all the payments, and they just collect the money. Makes me even more irritated.
I can't imagine why. Well, so what we need to do is TC needs to take a trip over to your shop, and we need to film a promotion video of TC firing one of your ARs.
Oh, that would be fun. Hey, take a road trip.
I've been to Mankato. I did a school board meeting over there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Our school board is
Oh,
Wow.
I was there at the behest of of a group of teachers and other school district employees. They pretty much begged me to come over. So, yeah, they because they've all kind of stood up and were saying no to a lot of the things like the CRT and um, the mask dates and the jab dates and all of that. They were pushing back, and uh, I don't think the school board was ready for the massive number of people who were in the school district who were going to push back against that. I don't think they realized how many liberty loving people um, worked for them, which of course is understandable because a lot of times in the school districts, the school board all the way down to even the janitors all kind of think alike.
If they don't think alike, they're punished for speaking out of their thoughts.
Yeah, it very much so. So you kind of came to libertarianism in the big L libertarianism in the 80s. So you don't look like you've aged that much. So how old were you then when that took place?
That would have been, I would have been teenager, probably 16, 17.
Right. So I figured we were right around the same age then. What year did you graduate there?
88.
Oh, yeah, you're just a year older than me. Or years, well, not necessarily older, but you graduated a year earlier. So, but you're
Yeah.
probably smarter because I saw that you have several master's degrees.
Oh, yeah. I'm a little bit educated.
And yet you're still a libertarian.
Or pushes me farther and farther off that edge.
But so what do you have your degrees in? So people can know a little bit about you.
Well, we'll just start with my education. I actually have was in the Army. I was in surgery, so I actually graduated top of my class in surgical technology and was an instructor for teaching surgical assistants in the Army. And then left the Army, went to college, got hired at the college, stayed in the college. So I got tuition waiver, so I got free classes. So I took classes and things. I have an undergrad. My bachelor's degree is Bachelor of Science in Biology with minors in chemistry and physics. I have a master's in biology. I have a master's in experiential education. Those are the people who do like outward bound classes and stuff.
Hmm.
And then I also, because I was working as a adjunct faculty at some of the community colleges, I picked up credentials to be able to teach uh, geography, English, and remedial reading. So I've got probably about 300 or 400 undergraduate credits and about the same number of graduate credits.
You're no slouch.
Oh, no, not even close.
You
You
are
guys,
not showing up to the next convention with a shoe on your head.
no, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. I'm a member of the low IQ group. So
So
yeah.
you you have this background. You started in the kind of coming towards libertarianism in the 80s. Any big names in the 80s that you remember that really impacted you as far as reading? Because back then, people don't understand. You and I, when we did research in the 80s, we actually had to do research in the 80s. We didn't get to go to a Wayback Machine and type in a name or a topic and find information.
Honestly, I ended up kind of in the libertarian ones, not necessarily from the mainstream libertarians, but actually through science fiction. Uh, Heinlein, he actually wrote a few science fiction books, like "The Moon is a Harsh Mistress," "A Stranger in a Strange Land," that pushed the idea of voluntarism and individual freedom, which kind of pushed me in that direction. So I had the philosophy and thought process. I didn't have the big name political figures.
Who? So you would have your first election would have been 88.
Yes,
Did you find yourself involved in 88?
I was. I was not involved as a libertarian. My parents dragged me in as a Democrat. I apologize about that. I will.
No, it's so you but at the same time, even as far back as 88, there wasn't a libertarian party that had a strong voice at that time. And people will still make the argument that there wasn't a strong libertarian voice even in the last election. When you look at, Spike, and I always go to Spike because Spike was the prominent name on that ticket. And I had Spike on, and we talked a little bit about his run with Joe Jorgensen and the fact that they didn't even really communicate ever. And which was, I think, detrimental because Spike has some phenomenal views and positions, and he may not be firmly ensconced in the Mises camp within the caucus, but he definitely has the right views. And people are still out there saying, well, the libertarians don't have enough of a voice. But I'm telling people, if they pay attention, and this,
Oh,
you
yeah.
go back to the 80s, the libertarians had really no voice at all. And they did have some people out there outside of the Rothbarts and others who just were not doing a good job of representing libertarianism.
Correct.
Great. Well, one.
Well, okay, so
It's not,
there's
I told you I'm conversational.
Yeah. Okay, so you're correct. The thing is that there's a lot of people wandering around with our same ideals, thoughts, and philosophies. They just haven't identified themselves yet. If they
Right.
took a look at what they would like in government, many of them would prefer to see a small government, more liberty, less laws, less regulation. But they just don't know how to vocalize that.
So Toby, let me push on that a little bit. The people that you're identifying, you say, well, right, that's why I'm a Republican, because I'm small government, I'm for liberty, I'm for local, activism and whatnot. How do you respond to that as a guy who's a libertarian in the party, been to this party convention at the state level, and is running for a local office? How do you push back on those people when they say, well, then why don't you run as a Republican?
Well, one is I get the benefit of the mayoral campaign is nonpartisan. We don't actually list our political party on the ballot.
Well, we
So
ruined that tonight, didn't we?
I know. Well, yeah. Now, well, okay. The local paper is exceptionally liberal and supportive of my challenger. So they made a point of putting that into their last article on the candidates. They didn't mention her party at all, but mentioned mine 5 or 6 times in literally one small column. So yes, it's out there. I'm libertarian, but I kind of point this out that quite often the Libertarian Party, if we have good candidates who you can actually vote for, it is actually a pretty good choice because our philosophy is very simple: small government, do what you wish, don't tell other people what to do, and that's kind of the way a lot of people think. They just haven't been able to take that leap to the name.
As you developed your philosophy, have you found yourself, I guess for lack of better terminology, being able to cross an aisle, say maybe towards the right? And let's be honest, when you look at the Libertarian Party, especially where it is today, you look at the New Hampshire Free State Project.
Yeah.
And that's very much, not necessarily Mises, but it's very, very much in that same vein. A lot of the people in the New Hampshire Free State Project are libertarian, and they're very much Mises oriented. The National Party has very much embraced the Mises caucus mentality, which I think has been a boon to them. It's definitely been a boon. But it also tends to have a lot of voices that a lot of people assume are right wing, whatever that even means today. I was listening to Tom Woods' show from yesterday, and of course I know you know who Tom Woods is, but I was listening to his conversation with I can't remember the doctor's name right now, and you listen to the way a lot of people respond to how libertarians think, and they go, "Oh, you sound like a right winger." And I hear that, and I think a lot of times what we're dealing with in these situations is a group of people who hear liberty-minded principles, liberty-minded values, small government, localized control, um, do what you and not in the Anton LaVey way, but do what you want as long as it's not affecting other people in a negative way. And they go, well, that sounds like right-wing mentality, not necessarily alt-right, obviously. Do you think that makes it easier for you to reach out to small town, or not necessarily small town, but more rural rocks and cows types who might be on the fringes of society in Mankato and make you more appealing to them because you definitely aren't a leftist?
Yes, that is true. Basically, what I find myself is I find myself with surrounded by right wing, whatever that means,
Right.
people, and trying to explain the concept that I'm conservative as far as financially, but as far as social issues, I don't really care. I'm pretty liberal. You can do what you want. We just don't have to pay for it. So that, of course, has run into minor glitches. I was out hanging up door hangers a few weeks ago. Little old lady asked, "So are you conservative?" And I answered the question of, "Well, as far as finances for the city government, yes, I am conservative. But as far as social issues and impacting people's lives, I'm very liberal." And she immediately crumpled up the door hanger and threw it away because I wasn't right wing enough.
Well, okay, so let me, if I can, and I don't know if you had a chance to check out any of my content because I know you're busy campaigning. So, or if you've asked anybody, should I go on this guy's show? Is he dangerous?
Well, I figured I'll just come on as the raving lunatic and we'll be okay.
Well, one of us will nail down the raving lunatic part at some point.
Okay.
So, um, is it? I want to be cautious in using the word liberal because I actually will not. I don't label most people liberal anymore. What I see are leftists or progressives on social issues, and I see traditional conservatives on social issues, and ultimately, and this is coming from a Christian perspective, um, we have Christianity, and as a Christian, Christianity has co-opted what it means to be conservative. When you go back to the founder of modern conservatism is Sir Edmund Burke. When you really, he is the grandfather of modern conservatism. He was not a Christian conservative in the way that we look at, the 700 Club types or the moral majority types. The vast majority of even Christian conservatives going back 50, 60, 70 years would not have dreamed of walking into an environment and saying we're going to legislate our morality. And I think that shifted, quite honestly, when you and I were both much younger, with the moral majority taking over conservatism.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I consider myself on the whole social one is we should not be passing laws on what you do. We should not be telling you what to do. It's none of our business. And so that's why, as far as social issues, it's liberal. If you want to donate to whatever group, go for it. We
So
just
you're classically liberal in the sense of you do what you want in your home, but it doesn't need to be pushed out into the public sphere.
true.
And I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but so let's look at an issue that's probably, I mean, where's Mankato since you're running for mayor, population wise and metropolitan mentality wise, Mankato wants to be Minneapolis and St. Paul. It really
Oh,
does.
yes, they do. They really
So
aim of it.
where do they fall in rank? We have Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Rochester population base. Where's Mankato fall? Is that directly behind Rochester, or is Duluth right ahead of them still? Ahead of you guys?
Mankato itself only has about 40,000 people. It's not, or 40 to 50. But let me think. I think it's about 50,000 now. So it is actually one of the smaller cities. Um, but yeah, the government and the local newspaper and a lot of the people who are controlling or the city believe that they are a little blue pinpoint in a sea of red.
Well, do you think that it's an accurate view for them? Or do you think there's far more red there than they even realize?
There is a lot more red than they realize. It's a very vocal blue group. And
Which is pretty much common anytime there's blue. They are very loud.
yeah.
So you're looking at a situation where you're running against a progressive leftist without even naming them as a particular party affiliate. They're very much a progressive leftist. They hold office currently.
Yes.
Um, they're appealing to. I would imagine they're appealing to the alphabet mafia type. Whatever particular flavor of the alphabet mafia, whether it be LGBTQ or the BIPOC group or whatever, they're appealing to that, and they're saying, "Look, we're all about protecting you." Where ultimately, what a lot of people see, especially at the city level, is not protection. They're seeing advancement. Like, we're going to advance your cause, especially when it comes to LGBTQ. We're going to force this into the narrative. How does a libertarian step into that who says, look, I am a fiscal conservative. I am socially classically liberal. I'm not a leftist. How do you step into that and respond to the social progressivism without sounding like you're telling them I'm coming for you?
Well, it's a lot harder than you think. Actually, quite often after the city council has made an announcement or made a new ordinance, they usually say within the same media release, our city is very progressive on this issue. They actually use that term on themselves. But my concept of how do I go about this without saying that I'm coming after them, I'm coming at it from the perspective of these issues are not a city issue. They are far more global. They're far bigger. That's a state or federal issue. There's no reason for a small city council to step in and try to become the controller of this much larger social issue. We should focus on just what's important for a city, maintaining the infrastructure, making sure it's a safe and healthy place to live.
I I like what you said there in that it is a global issue, but let's take that to pure libertarian thought. Don't you think it's less of a global issue and more of a ultimately it's a voluntarist issue? Because if a particular group of people is meeting and they're talking about starting a business, that arm arm's length exchange type business,
Mm-hmm.
and they want to cater, let's say it's a group of LGBTQ group, and they say we're going to cater to LGBTQ people, and we are going to actively refuse to do business with anybody that we can identify and know is against us in the sense of they're conservative Christian or whatnot. The role of the city of Mankato in that situation would be to step in and say, none of our business, or we're going to back you up on this, or you have to do business with everybody because EEOC says you have to.
Okay, the role of the current administration in the city.
No, your administration.
Oh, great. That is none of our business. You can do as you wish. You should be able to choose freely who you wish to do business with, and that would be a very relaxed attitude of it's really not our place to tell you who you have to do business with. We are a government. Governments are not businesses. Governments, if at the end of the year a government has money left over, they spend it because it was part of their budget. They blow it. If a business has money left over, it's profit. Governments and businesses are two entirely different entities, and government should really stay out of business. We really should let businesses just be business. If you think you have enough of a niche market that you just want to deal with whatever group you want to deal with, that really should be no business of the city.
And you would say the same for a group of darn, like skinheads are pretty much non-existent anymore. But
Well,
if a group of skinheads decided they wanted to start a neo-Nazi club and open a storefront and only cater to other neo-Nazis, you would say none of our business.
exactly.
That makes you dangerous. You know that, right?
I know that makes me super dangerous. All right.
And you'll stand on that, though.
Oh God, yes, I'll stand on that. I own a gun shop. I know some of my competitors have that kind of policies in place. They won't deal with certain groups, or they will decide that they will only do those. And that's their business model. That's their business decision. It is none of my business. So,
I'm not trying to put you too much on the spot.
oh, put me on the spot. I already said I'm a crazy person.
No, like seriously, I normally have had numerous conversations with people before having them on, or I've been able to listen to their content, and I intentionally chose not to have in-depth conversation with you. It because I'm completely flying by the seat of my pants for this, Toby. So I appreciate you going along for the experiment. This is fun for me. So
Yeah. So no, I really think that if you want to make yourself a niche market, if you want to limit yourself to a certain group of people, you can do it. Because
and
it's
the, and the free market will determine your success or your failure based on your niche.
bingo. Because if you think you have enough of a profit margin by dealing only with a small group of people, hey, go for it. If you think you need to expand and be nice to more people, go for it. It's really none of my business, and I think the government should actually stay out of that and let you just kind of collapse or succeed depending upon what your market says.
And that's across the board. You're not it and that's why I keep asking this, is because people need to understand that that's what the free market anarcho-capitalistic view ultimately leads to. Really looking at the Constitution of the United States, Bill of Rights, is part of the First Amendment is a freedom to assemble,
Yeah.
freedom of association. You associate with who you want to associate with, and the state at all of our levels. And just so you're aware, Toby, I refer to the state as the municipal state, the city state, the county state, the school board state, and the state, and then the federal state. And the state at all of our levels ultimately should have no say at all in who you associate with. So if you want to come in and you want to be a new Black Panther Party, and you want to have a parade in the middle of town talking about new Black Panther policy, and you want to do a march, the city has no business. We're not going to protect you necessarily in the sense of make sure that nobody's there to protest against you, but we're also not going to forbid it because we don't like your message. And if the KKK shows up to march down the streets like they did in was it Muskogee, we're going to let them do it too. And we're going to let counter protesters come in, and we might keep you guys from beating the crap out of each other, but we're not going to tell you can't.
Yeah, correct. Because really, it's none of our business. And actually, the city should have a very simple one where all the permits, all the fees for doing that parade permits. Okay, I have a thing against parade permits to begin with, but they should treat them all equally. Instead of some groups get no fees, some groups get some. If you're going to have a fee, it should be equal across the board, not favored groups that get it at a much lower rate or get extra assistance. Everything should be able to succeed or fail based upon the market outcome.
I'm going to shift a little bit, and because I think this is where the rubber meets the road at the local state, at the city state level. is, we could talk about property taxes. Cities don't have a lot to do in and of itself with property tax. There are some cities that do. I don't know what's Mankato's particular codes on property taxes. Mankato have a big property tax basis, or is most of their stuff coming from fees, assessments, and business tax?
Oh, wow. Mankato puts their fingers in everything.
So they do have a strong property tax base.
They have a strong property tax base. They do have fees, fines, license fees, licensing department, and also the city 30 years ago passed a extra half-cent sales tax.
Oh, just like Rochester did. It was going to be temporary, right?
Oh yeah, it was temporary. Nothing's more permanent than temporary.
Temporary sales tax. Yeah. I'm going to come vote for you anyway, right now.
Yes,
That's a joke. I'm literally not coming over to Mankato to vote.
I don't know. You move here you stay here in Mankato for 21 days up to the election. You're a resident. You can vote here.
I'm sure I could find somebody to let me crash on their couch for a few days.
But they went ahead. They put in a half-cent sales tax for 10 years to cover the cost of their civic center so that they could compete with Minneapolis. Yes, that was the goal. That was their logic.
They tell me they did not say that.
To get people to drive down from Minneapolis to see shows, to see bands, to see this, and they would get people just who want to drive 2 hours from Minneapolis to do the same thing they do at Target Center. No, they did this. And then
Sarcasm duly noted, sir.
Yes. So then they renewed to send the half-cent sales tax for the airport, because we know there's probably like the plane every day landing at the Mankato airport. That was a few minutes.
At least one a day.
Yeah. And then they went ahead and they renewed it this time, not for a specific purpose, but for projects in the area. And so now they have this half-cent property tax that they have to blow every year. Otherwise, it goes back to the state general fund. But it can only be used to build the projects, can't be used for maintaining.
I want people to hear that one more time. The state levies a tax. It comes out of the pockets of the people who live, or the city levels a tax. It comes out of the pockets of the people who live within and own property within the city limits of the city of Mankato. And that money, if it doesn't get spent, goes to the state general fund. I want people to hear that in Mankato, especially if you're in Mankato and you're watching this. Do you realize what he just said is they take that money from you, and if they don't use it, it doesn't go back to you. It doesn't stay in the city coffers. It goes to the state general fund.
Okay, yeah, that's step one.
That's enough, Toby. We don't need enough.
Step two is worse. They buy for it. They buy a project. Let's say they put planters downtown to beautify the area. They now have these big concrete planters they just bought with this money. But the money can't be used to maintain them. So now they have to hire gardeners to go plant them. And that has to come out of a separate fund, which is property taxes and park fees and stuff. So not only did they take the money from people and just blow it so that they wouldn't have to give it up and send it to the state, they now have to raise taxes in other areas to provide police protection so they don't get vandalized, gardeners to plant them, somebody to go by and water them. So it's not just they took your money and blew it. They took your money and blew it. Now they have to take more money from you to protect the money that they blew.
Is this sinking in yet, people? I just, I did not realize this was going to turn into an episode of Libertarian Lowdown, but it's going to get put on the Libertarian Lowdown series. So here we are. So I asked that question about taxation and whatnot because I wanted to shift to a couple of things, and I'm going to lead into this shift, and this is going to be a little bit harder as we get to the goal of the shift. And you let me know when you have a hard out, by the way.
Okay.
If you have a hard out, I don't know. when you look at the last 2 years, um, and you look at the municipal reaction across the state of Minnesota, the more progressive cities, and let's just throw Rochester into the mix because Rochester is a really good example of something that wasn't Minneapolis or St. Paul. You had the mayor of Rochester, Kim Norton, was well ahead of the state in implementing mask mandates, and even like was begging Governor Walz, Commissar Walz of the People's State of Minnesota, please institute a statewide mask mandate so that these businesses are forced to stay in Rochester. And because there were businesses in Rochester that were threatening to leave, close up shop, and move outside of the city limits if Norton implemented a mask date outside of the state mask date. And business shutdowns and all of that stuff. I'm going to ask hard question right now. In the event that it happens again, because ladies and gentlemen, if we do not get the right outcome with the next midterm election and the next presidential election, and I'm not talking about a particular candidate, they will do it again because they've proven, especially here in the state of Minnesota, that the Minnesota people will follow whatever their local, especially whatever their local mayors and their governor or whatever tells them to do. They'll do it. They'll comply. Would you, as mayor of Mankato, practice nullification and look at the state and look at the federal government and say, no, we are not enforcing any of this here. We are a free city. There will be no mask mandates. There will be no business shutdowns. We will defend and protect the businesses of this community.
Absolutely. Basically, what happened was here in Mankato, the city council was progressive. They pushed forward a mask mandate before the state, before we had the mandates coming from the state level. Across the river, which from here is about 400 yards, is North Mankato. They practiced nullification. Their police department said, we are not enforcing. We will not waste our time enforcing these mandates from there. So here in the city that I live in, they were rapidly going after any place that did not have a mask rule, did not have a plan in action to follow the mask mandates. They were actually very aggressive at policing it. Across the river, no problem. It was just could follow the mandates if you felt like it, but their police will not enforce it. Mankato, they ordered the police to go after people. So I firmly believe we should be doing the nullification, and we should be saying we are not going to waste our city resources on following any of these mandates that come down. If they want to have it, they could send state police down to try to do it, but we're not going to help you. But
Well, so I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask this question. So let's say worst case scenario, Walz wins in November.
Mm-hmm.
We have another magical, I refer to it as the coof on my channel because if you mention the other virus, if you actually mention the virus by name, YouTube still likes to take you down. But so the coof, another version of the coof comes up, and Walz says, "Oh, well, it worked the first time. We're going to do it again." And you say, as the mayor of Mankato, I'm not enforcing any of this stuff, and my police force won't. And Walz says, I'm sending the state patrol down and the Department of Public Safety down, and we're going to enforce this at the state level. Would you direct the chief of police of Mankato to tell his staff, you will not allow the state to come in here and enforce this? Because that, for me, is part of nullification.
I don't think I could get the police to cooperate.
You don't think you could get the actual rank and file?
I could not get rank and file will happily help the state patrol. But we could leave the instructions that we will not waste our resources on this, which means we will not go assist them in inspecting. We will not go assist them there. We will have our police focus on other things because this is not our mandate. If if it's a state thing, the state can do it, but we can't deliberately interfere with them because we're not going to get our police to cooperate on the interference. Okay, I can't expect the local police to actually cooperate and refuse or interfere with the state patrol. But we instruct them that you have more important things to do. You're not going to assist them. The state patrol can spend their time to wander around and figure out what's going on and do their investigation without our help, which won't work well because they don't really know the area.
And you would say that with the Mankato Health Department and all across all of the agencies within the city, we will not cooperate in any of this.
Exactly. Yeah, we don't want to cooperate. Way too
Just so you're aware, we're having a little bit of cutout issue with your audio off your phone. So I
okay.
don't know if there's something.
Sorry, I'm not sure what's going on with my phone, but either way,
It's better now.
Okay. Let's see. Go back to this question. I feel that we should not be assisting them with it, and I can't get the police to not we can't get the police to follow any instruction, let alone telling them to deliberately interfere with the state patrol or department. And the one that I really dislike is the Minnesota liquor licensing system, because there, if you denied, if you violated Walls's mandate, they came in and just shut your business down. They pulled your liquor license and fined you. And so I think that the state level is just so abusive that I can't encourage people to cooperate with them. And actually, do I have time to mention this? And as far as it comes to gun shops,
I have as much time as you want. I don't normally go to bed till like 12:16. So
okay. Well, all right. I teach conceal and carry classes. So when these mandates came down, there was the exception that classes were closed, but safety classes were allowed. So many of us just continued doing classes. Well, Walls then ordered all gun ranges to shut down because obviously people on gun ranges are closer than 6 feet from each other. Nobody's ever close to 6 feet on a gun range. And then they said that you can't teach these conceal and carry classes. Well, an instructor taught a class in Jordan, Minnesota. The Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension under Walls went to that instructor, fined him $1,000, and pulled his credentials so he can no longer teach classes in Minnesota. Then the Walls had the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension send a email to every credentialing company. Okay, all of us are credentialed by a credentialing. So there's probably 30 or 40 credentialing companies in Minnesota. Every instructor is tagged with one of them that overseeing us. And the instructions were if an instructor is caught teaching a class while Walls had them shut down, that instructor would lose their credentials. The credentialing company would have their credentials pulled. Every instructor who is under the credentialing company will lose their credentials. And thus all of them will be put out of business. So somebody in Shakopee could teach a class and I would suddenly lose my license to teach under his mandate. It was that aggressive and abusive.
Just out of curiosity, do you know this guy from Jordan?
No, actually, I heard from I have not met him. I know him through various channels, but it was kind of like he got busted and they basically shut him down and then threatened to shut everybody else in the area down and got caught. And so we were quickly told by our company, cancel every class we have, don't have any. Because if you do, we all suffer. And that was communal punishment, which is always wrong. So I'm dead set that I think these mandates were way too aggressive and unnecessary and probably unconstitutional, because before he announced new mandates, he quite often would say, well, if the legislature could pass a law on this, I wouldn't have to do these mandates. which is exactly why we have a legislature make laws, because if they can't pass a law, it probably shouldn't be done.
Okay, so are you sitting down?
I'm sitting on a stool, yeah.
Okay. So here comes the next one, and this is the one that's going to be harder. I've had several candidates from across the country, and here locally, I've had Mike. Are you familiar with Mike Termott?
No, I'm not.
Okay, I had Mike Termott on. He's a former economist, worked in the White House under Bush, um, and then became a cop in Florida. Now running for the nomination of the president for the Libertarian Party. He is Mises Caucus. So he and Dave Smith head to head, I guess. I don't know. I've had Eric Parker from Jacksonville on. I've had other people on, and I've had Republicans on, and I've advanced this idea to many people in private conversation and through the show. Would you, as mayor of Mankato, be open to the idea of tying police funding to mandatory continuing education for everyone within the police department, to constitutional education, one, to be hired, and two, to maintain their certification within the city of Mankato as a police officer, to 20 to 25 hours or more a year of constitutional training, to include not only what the Constitution says, but also case law that shows the importance of the Constitution to law enforcement activity.
Yes, and I'll take it a step further.
Oh
Okay.
boy, I'm going to sit back because I feel like you're about to unload.
All right. So first of all, let's start with this. Constitutional law is very important. We should make sure that they actually learn about the constitutional law, how it applies to police. The second part is whenever the cops violate somebody's constitutional rights and the person sues, the settlement. All right. And the response from the police whenever they abuse somebody or break the constitutional laws, we're going to take care of it internally. It's a personnel issue. We'll take care of it internally. I think those settlements should come out of their personnel budget. If they're going to take care of it internally, they can take care of paying for the settlement internally too. Okay, I'm the raving lunatic. I'm sorry.
No, I think it's amazing because I had Mike Termott, like I said, I had Mike Termott on for 2 episodes. I had him on for one strictly talking about I don't want to say strictly talking about qualified immunity for law enforcement, but in general across the board for all public servants. Because a lot of people don't understand that anybody who either runs for office or is appointed to a position in a public sector entity benefits from qualified immunity.
Oh, yeah.
And we talked about how ending qualified immunity, instead of being a detriment to law enforcement, would actually improve policing. And so that was a dedicated show. And then we talked about just his views and whatnot, and why he's what would qualify him to be a great candidate for president. But the thing that I want people to understand of what you just said is that it's always handled internally. So I co-host another show called Veteran Nation, and it's on a couple of different networks. Excuse me. And one of the things we joke about on Veteran Nation, obviously, is military stuff, right?
Yeah.
And what we see with the military, and you know this, you were in the military, I would imagine Fort Sam Houston is very familiar to you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I'm a former member of the 82nd Airborne Division, so we laughed at the Fort Sam guys because they'd come to Fort Bragg and they'd be like, "Where's the air conditioning?" And so we joke often about the military, but in this applies to law enforcement. What we've done is we've received your complaint. We hear that you have a concern with something that we have done, and what we're going to do now is investigate ourselves. And when we're done investigating ourselves, we're going to let you know that the conclusion of the investigation is that we have investigated ourselves, and we have determined that we have done nothing wrong.
Pretty much.
And I love what you said about, okay, if you're going to handle this internally, then you're going to pay for this internally. It's going to come out of your personnel budget. I
Yeah.
love that. That's a great. Would you be willing to campaign on that, in the sense of, I'm going to campaign on this, but we're going to campaign on, you're going to pay for this internally out of your personnel budget. So if you decide you need 8 new officers this year, you better keep that in mind, because that could affect your hiring ability. It could affect your raises. But would you be willing to campaign on the idea of a requirement for all officers to receive continuing education every year? And people don't know this. Teachers have continuing education. Doctors have continuing education. Cops have continuing education. They have monthly training requirements most of the time in every agency, sheriff's office, police departments, whatnot. They have to have training, a certain number of hours of training every year. And I think it's like 40 hours or more in the state of Minnesota.
Yeah.
And most of the time, most agencies exceed that. They do go above and beyond to ensure that. Problem is most of it's related to first aid and use of force.
Yeah, or things that are questionable at best, like drug recognition officers. Oh, I think you're on drugs, and I learned how to say it so that you get prosecuted.
Yeah, I can speak to the validity of that. Not as being the subject of the abuse, but I've seen it work well, and I've seen it work not well. Let's just put it that way. I think that we could change policing at the city state level and at the county state level if sheriffs, county commissions, mayors, city councils, and chiefs of police of all these different city states understood that every one of your officers is going to receive 20 to 25 hours a year of constitutional training.
Okay. I like the idea of forcing mandatory training. I personally like the idea of having them pay for the settlement out of their personnel budget. If you break constitutional rights and they sue you, that is a more direct one than you have to take 3 shifts and sit in a classroom. It'll be a rather instant and immediate effect of, if you break this, your department's going to pay for it. If you're all sitting there and the chief of police has to announce there's going to be no raises this year because Dave beat a guy, everybody could turn, look at Dave, and explain to Dave that he shouldn't do that.
Dave, stop beating people. We're not going to get a raise.
Exactly.
I don't disagree with this, Toby, but here's what here's what I'll tell you.
Okay.
That would be far easier for the unions and the chiefs and the sheriffs to argue against than it would be for them to step up and say, the mayor and the county commissioners are requiring that we implement training on the Constitution every year to the tune of 20 or more hours a year, which, really is, when you look at 12 months, 20 hours is not a lot.
True.
It could be done online. It can be done through lecture in person. It can be done in the classroom, because that's how all of this stuff is done now.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine, just for the sake of argument, a chief of police or a county sheriff or a law enforcement union coming in and going, we refuse to implement training in the Constitution?
Okay, true. It'd probably be more likely a pass. I just think them police having to pay for the settlements internally would solve it a lot faster and more immediately.
But I agree with you 100%. But imagine coupling those.
Oh yeah, if we could couple those, that would be amazing.
I think if you couple that and say, look, here's the deal: you either sign off on the constitutional requirement, or if you refuse to do that, then you agree per policy that you will pay for any settlements out of your budget. if you agree to the constitutional element, here's the kicker. So we're working through this together. This is a planning session right here, right now. Me and you, Toby.
Okay.
This is why I do long form. If you agree to the constitutional element, the city's not on the hook, because the officer will not be able to say, I didn't know I was violating somebody's constitutional rights. I didn't know the case law. I didn't know the constitutional ramifications. So now their qualified immunity is stripped, and the city can't be held, or the county or whatever can't be held accountable for that. And so now you've got the union, you've got the chief of police, you've got the rank and file, you've got them over a barrel. Either agree to this, or you're going to end up paying for this out of your personal bank account. And guess what? When we strip you of your qualified immunity because you did violate somebody's constitutional rights, we can fire you outright with no settlement. I think I like your idea. I think we team those two things up.
Okay.
You're like, whatever, dude. This is just your show.
I find people don't listen very well, but if you follow the money, you can find out what they listen to. They have to personally pay if their department. They're saying they can police themselves. Let's have them police themselves. And if I've worked for the state, I've worked for the military, and a lot of these trainings people just kind of yawn at and kind of ignore. So trainings, just adding more trainings may or may not help, but if they have an immediate effect, if you don't pay attention to this training and you end up violating somebody's rights and we get sued, we don't get raises for a couple of years. That would have that would be a very clear effect to them. Or you don't get really cool cop toys anymore because we don't have a budget.
I think this is a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's almost a reverse civil asset forfeiture.
Well, I was going to ask those two questions next. So we've addressed the idea. So you'd be on board with tying budgetary, especially personnel, hiring and training and whatnot to, okay, we're going to give you a little bit more play in your budget for hiring and for training, but part of that is going to be continuing education in the Constitution.
Yes.
So you'd be on board with that, and then tying that to the idea of, and if you refuse, then you pay for all of the damages out of your budget wherever you got to make cuts. If that means you get rid of a lieutenant or a captain or and whatnot. But would you also then, as mayor, direct the chief of police of Mankato? We will no longer do any civil asset forfeiture, period, outside of actual convictions that are legitimate for actual legitimate crimes, and we will not execute no-knock warrants in the city limits of Mankato.
Absolutely. I would actually eliminate civil asset forfeiture outright. That's off the books. Not there, done, gone. And if it's criminal asset forfeiture, not only do you lose the item, it has to be a crime. If it's used in a crime, proceeds of a crime, that's criminal asset forfeiture.
Provable after a jury trial.
That's correct. You have to have a crime and then you lose it. So if you're not guilty, it's not a crime. So there's none of civil asset forfeiture. And just be done with civil asset forfeiture right off the bat. And as far as no-knock raids are only because, no-knock raids are because they're cool and cops love those kind of things. And I think that they're a danger to everyone. They are a violation of basic rights. And so it puts everybody in danger, and a lot of those go there. Also, I believe that we should probably not get the surplus items from the federal government. The wonderful, cool toys, the
MRAPs and stuff like that.
I think we should not get them. We should not accept those, because they also come with the fact that to get those, you have to use them within a year. So you get a new MRAP.
You fabricate a reason to use it.
Bingo. You have to create a need. You didn't have a need before. So you got the toy. Now you have to make a need to get it, to keep it. So now you're something that would have been just as simple. Andy Griffith, hey, we're here to do a search. Suddenly becomes, let's do a no-knock raid and use the big toy. I think we should not be getting any. We should not be getting any items that require us to now fabricate it.
I like this. I like how this is going.
I said right at the beginning, I am the lunatic. So yeah.
Well, but I think if people could actually hear this, they would be like, let's just go back to the continuing education aspect. You name a person who's going to argue against training officers. I mean, we hear it all the time. All cops are bastards and defund the police and so on and so forth. Over and over and over again. We hear it constantly. How do you look at that person and say, okay, you want law enforcement reform. You want criminal justice reform. It starts locally. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to tie it to continuing education in the Constitution every year for every one of these officers that they're going to have to pass, demonstrate proficiency, sign off on saying that they have been trained. If they refuse to do it, then they don't work here anymore because they're not complying with the rules and regs of our agency. When they do sign off on it, they are now saying that they understand, and when they violate, it's on them. Anybody argues against that, left-winger, centrist, or right-winger, anybody that argues against that looks like an idiot.
Yeah. And I like the idea of, if you're going to have problems and you're going to handle problems internally, you can pay for the problems internally too. Because that's one of the big things the city council here does, is the budget. It's hundreds of pages long, and I would love to sit there and look at it and go, wow, we have to budget for $100,000 settlement because one of the cops beat somebody. Well, how about we budget it by just taking $100,000 out of the personnel to budget for the police department and let them figure out, handle it internally.
You said you didn't need the constitutional training, so don't screw up.
Yeah. And, oh, you screwed up. Well, now you handle it internally.
I think you kill two birds with one stone if you take these two proposals to them and you make them inextricably linked. Boy, I'm telling you, I know education in English, and I know how to put sentences together, just not very well. So I would love to see you come out, and I would love to see you come out and say, we need cops. That's just the world we live in.
Yeah.
There are evil people doing evil things, and there are stupid criminals doing stupid stuff, and we need cops. But we need our cops to be fully informed about their requirements, and we need them to be fully aware of the oath that they take to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Minnesota. So we're going to make sure that they're doing their jobs, not just following orders, but actually following their oath and standing firm on the Constitution. That changes everything.
Yeah, it does. It makes them realize that they are citizens too. We are all citizens. We all have the same rights, and they have responsibilities to protect those rights.
What would you? So we're gonna jump again because I think we've beat that horse.
Okay. Cool.
Would you be willing to try and implement for lack of better terminology, I don't think we really see this at the city-state level, but it is what it is. Would you be willing to look at a budget or any other codification that is happening at the city level and say, as mayor, I'm going to be implementing a line item veto.
The answer to your question is our city council charter does not allow us to do that. But
Okay.
there's a solution to that.
All right.
My solution that I would love to see is an automatic sunset clause on every ordinance. Every single ordinance that they pass, as soon as it's passed, as soon as it goes into effect, 10 years later, it is automatically repealed. Because then instead of trying to sit there and go, we're going to cancel each law as we go about it, the line of a veto thing on laws, we're just going to go ahead and go, all laws are just basically deleted after 10 years. You have to repass them. Because we've got a lot of things that are bouncing around that are floating, just sitting there silent, and they're only used when the cops want to harass somebody, or somebody complains, or some bureaucrat wants to go ahead and start doing fines and administrative fees to somebody in the city. And that's where they start trying to abuse people, is when they're pulling out these old obscure laws and just going crazy on people. And just for perspective, our city has a concept called administrative fees.
Mm-hmm.
If you have not cut your grass and they decide that your grass is too long.
What is the standard in Mankato? Just so people understand just how much control the city-state has over the people in Mankato. Do you know what the regulation is?
It's elastic. It is
really. So they,
if it's more than, I think, 6 inches, or if there's weeds or inappropriate vegetation. And it doesn't specify whether or not trees are included or bushes are included. And so
what on earth is an version of inappropriate vegetation? I'm picturing like half-naked thistles having a lap dance with a plantain. So
yeah, basically one of my friends, her herb garden got ticketed. Well, it didn't get ticketed. What they did is they said you had to cut everything down. Otherwise, we can come out and then we will ticket you. And then we'll come out again. Then we'll cut it all down and have you pay for the cutting. But
her herb garden?
What? Herb garden, yeah.
Herb garden?
Yeah.
Like thyme and mint and rosemary and
she had
herb.
Yeah. She had a very small front yard, maybe 10 feet deep, 30 feet wide. So she just grew an herb garden in her front yard. And the city came by and inspected it and notified her that she had to cut it all down. Otherwise, they would come back through and ticket her, then come back through and mow it all down for her and charge her for the mowing, which would be minimum $250. But the more important thing is every time they came out, they would charge her an administrative fee. It'd be $60. You have to pay it. You can't challenge it in court. It is just an administrative fee for the inspector to come out, which is completely against any libertarian idea, because it's not
just against common sense, like, which is libertarianism for, by some people's definition.
So my attitude would be, is one of the things I'd like to see is just a sunset clause put on every ordinance. I would even be willing to do if I were elected, go, all the current ordinances in the city code are repealed automatically on such and such date within my term. That way, I'm the guy who has to read through all of them and see which ones to keep, and have to deal with everybody getting mad about whether they're kept or not. And then have every law put into effect at 10 years. It gets immediately appealed. Immediately repealed. Every time a law is put into effect, it gets repealed automatically at 10 years. Because a sunset clause like that would make all laws, you'd have to defend why you're passing each law every 10 years. And that would actually reduce a lot of these kind of abusive problems.
That's just ridiculous. Not what you're saying. I'm just trying to imagine the mindset that gets behind. I mean, I've got a problem with the city being able to tell me my grass is too tall at 4 inches. like at least that's an objective number. Like everybody knows what 4 inches is.
Yeah.
All inappropriate jokes aside, everybody knows what 4 inches is, and you can look at it and go, okay, that's 4 inches. And now it's taller because we even gave you the benefit of the doubt. Maybe you were on vacation and it rained a lot. But
Yeah.
the idea that the city of Mankato can send out some administrative inspector whose credentials are what? I don't know, who can then walk by and 1 week it could be Susie who said, "Oh no, great, beautiful, beautiful herb garden. What a wonderful use of the space of your very small postage stamp size yard." And the next week it could be Karen who walks by and says, "I'm jealous because I can't get my herbs to grow, and that makes me mad, and damn it, you're paying for it." I mean, is it literally that arbitrary?
Yes, it is. And then another year, the same woman with a postage stamp lawn got the plaque for best yard in the neighborhood one year.
And nothing really changed.
Oh, nothing changed. She kept it exactly the same, and then got administrative feed. And
your friend is now firmly ensconced in the libertarian camp.
Sort of, yeah.
Sort of.
10 years ago, I got administrative feed for having my grass too long. At the end of November.
At the end of what?
November.
So you hadn't followed the Minnesota rules, and cut your lawn so short that you cut it bald.
I know. So basically, it was like the 16th or 17th of November. I got notified that I had too long of grass. It was a nuisance, and if I didn't cut it within 10 days, come back out, they do another inspection. They could cut it themselves and then charge me a $250 fee for cutting plus the administrative fee for coming out. And it's November in Minnesota. Grass doesn't grow well once the snow lands.
Or a couple of good frosts.
Yeah. So it was one of those things where wait. And then I asked, what vegetation is too long? I called the inspector. It took a few days to get a hold of him. He's like, yeah, it's too long. Are we talking front yard or backyard? He's like, well, I can't really tell. I got pictures. I'm like, can you send me pictures? So obviously, it's pictures. No, they can't really send out the pictures. They just have it. And I have to do this. I'm like, where do I have to cut? Well, just cut your whole yard. And I'm like, do I have to cut the apple trees? Well, we can't really tell what vegetation it is. It's just simply somebody decided to give me a ticket and get administrative fee I can't fight in court.
Somebody didn't get their coffee in the morning, or they had a fight with their spouse and didn't get what they wanted in the morning, is what that came down to. That's what that came down to.
Yeah. And actually, homeowners, if you own the house, it's a $60 administrative fee. If it's a rental property, it's a $300 administrative fee.
Whoa, wait, what?
If I have long grass, it's a $60 administrative fee. If my next door neighbor, which is a rental, has long grass, it's a $300 administrative fee.
Why?
Because it's a rental.
And?
It takes they want 5 times the profit.
Okay. No, your sarcasm, sir, is not helpful in this situation.
Well, it's the way the city has set up their assistance abatement system and such, and rental licensing. They basically take the fees and multiply by 5 for rental units.
That's just asinine.
Yeah, if I don't shovel my walk, it's a $60 administrative fee when they come out to tell me I have to shovel it. If my neighbor it's a rental doesn't shovel, it's a $300 administrative fee. This is go in. I would love to step in and go, you know what? How about we sunset clause every ordinance? And those ordinances like requiring you to cut your yard, just let it repeal and disappear.
Well, the irony of that is that most of these progressive cities are now encouraging people to let their yards become natural prairie grass yards. I mean, that's a big move right now. Are the natural grasses movements where you allow the natural flowering plants and grasses and weeds, if you will, that crop up, ironically, in Minnesota. Let them go back to nature because it fosters the pollinating creatures and in causes bee colonies and other pollinators to thrive. How are they gonna like? They can't not maintain their progressive credentials.
Actually, they can in a absurdly hypocritical way. All right. First of all, if you wish to turn your yard into a natural prairie, you have to file with the Parks Department. They have a state city forester who will verify whether or not it's there, check your plan out, and sign off. And now you may have
How much does that cost?
a few $100.
So if I want to do a natural yard,
Yep.
I have to pay the city of Mankato a few $100 to get some schmuck. No offense, I know you've got a degree in biology. I'm not picking on that, but some schmuck to come out and go, "Oh yeah, this looks okay."
Yep. And so let's go to the other aspect that comes into play. Let's take the example no mow May. That's where you don't mow your yard in May so that the
To
bees and
foster pollinators.
okay. So the city puts up. They have the public
You have to get
public
the signs.
office put out notifications on their Facebook page and emails to the residents and the city announcements about how no mow May and how to help pollinators and such. The state of Minnesota Lawns to Legumes will actually give you money to convert your yard into pollinator habitat. So you can actually get paid to do that. But while these things are all promoting it, the city inspectors are out ticketing people for not mowing. Yes, yes, go like this. Put your head face palm because that's
I'm not face palming. I'm not the one that made the asinine decision. so so they get the money from the state.
yes, you can from the Lawns to Legumes program. You can
And
get
then they still ticket you.
yes, you get the money, you turn it into pollinator habitat, and then the city can come by and ticket you for doing so.
Even though you're following the state regs.
Exactly, but you're not following the city. This is why I want to be mayor.
How did you not win the first time?
Uh,
Somebody hinted to me that there may have been some malfeasance.
there. If somebody were to go look at the various election law courts that in St. Paul, and were to do a search for the names of the top two people, you would find them both were found guilty of election fraud.
In the 2019,
Primary 2018.
2018 primary.
Yeah. There's
Is one of those people maybe a mayor now?
yes. In the primary,
So in the 2018 primary, one of those people who was found guilty of election fraud, this and for the YouTube people, this is not about anything that had to do with 2020. The current mayor may or may not be named as a guilty party in the election malfeasance of 2018 in Mankato,
yes.
but still got elected to mayor,
yes. So what happens is
even though they violated the law.
yeah, there's a primary, and only the top two vote getters in the primary get to be on the ballot in November. I was the third place person,
In
and
2018.
for 2018, and so the top two, somebody had filed a complaint. It's a civil complaint. They did not do criminal charges on the candidates. On the top two, because they
And that
violated,
will be their excuse. It wasn't criminal.
they had to pay a fine. So obviously, rich people, it's legal for rich people, illegal for poor.
So you won the primary. You not
Yes.
won, but you won this go around. You're number 2 or number
Yep.
1 or whatever in the primary. So there was enough support there in Mankato. People had said, "Hey, I like this Toby guy. Let's give him a shot."
Exactly. So I'm on the ballot for November, and now there's just two, myself and Najwa Masad, the current mayor. And so,
And that current mayor is one of those people.
yes, it was. Yes.
I mean, that's fact. We're not
Fact.
slandering. We're not libeling. It's a fact. Najwa Masad was found guilty, had to pay a fine in 2018 for election malfeasance, and
Yep.
still got elected because it wasn't criminal.
It was just a fine.
It was
So,
just a civil
yeah, it was,
civil forfeiture, ironically.
and it was one of those things where, yeah, and the other candidate, Bukata Hayes, he was also found there. And he had to pay a fine too. So he moved on. So, yeah.
But you got in this time.
Yes, I got through the primary, so now I'm on the ballot in November.
And the door knocking's going how well?
Pretty good.
Besides the old lady who said you weren't conservative enough because you didn't want to tell people what they could do in their backyard or in their house.
Pretty good. Yep. Yes, going very well. We noticed in the primary neighborhoods where we door knocked heavily had a higher incidence of people voting for me, so we're hitting hard this time.
And what can the people of Mankato do now if they say we've had enough of the same old rigmarole and with the dog and pony show? What can they do and where can they find you?
Okay, it's fairly easy. I went ahead and I checked the greatest website address ever, Mankato Mayor.
Mankato Mayor what?
MankatoMayor.com and MankatoMayor.org. Either one brings you to my website, and it'll tell you kind of about me. It'll tell you about all the different candidates in the race, that you can find out all the information, some of the issues that pop up, and also you can.
And there's, I'm assuming, a place for people who maybe aren't in Mankato but would like to donate to your campaign.
Yes.
Have you reached out to the Mises Mayors Caucus organization?
No, I did not know there was this mayor's caucus. I reached out to the caucus, but not the mayor's caucus.
I got a friend down in Texas who's running for city council in, I can't remember what city he lives in. His name is Buck Johnson. He has a show called Counterflow, and he's post-libertarian, more paleo-conservative, but he's being backed by the Mises Mayor Caucus, or the Mises Mayor Organization. So do some digging and reach out to them because they are a phenomenal organization. And I'll try and get the link for you.
Make sure I have this written down right. Cool.
We have somebody watching who I've never seen before. Neil Shetheru. Interesting that turning your yard into a habitat means you must be extorted by the crown. Does planting flowers or vegetables require any such permits? Can't really see the difference. Aesthetics?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it's arbitrary. There really is no difference. It's completely arbitrary. Beauty is objectively subjective.
Yeah.
I could walk into a modern art museum and go, "This place needs to be burnt to the ground." I that's pretty much my view on modern art. Doesn't mean it's ugly, just means I think it is. And it's the same thing. So if somebody wants to donate to your campaign or support you, they can do that. And in Minnesota, that's limited to how much as far as Minnesota? Uh-oh, we lost you. Your camera turned off. Well, it looks like maybe Toby's phone died or he got a phone call. So I'm going to put him out for just now and see if he comes back in. If he does come back in, we'll put him back. We had him on for about an hour and a half anyway. So Toby is running for mayor of Mankato. He's made it through the primaries. It's one of two people. And if he is active, he looks like he's got a really good shot of getting out there and drumming up some support. So, my friends, if you are interested, please go to Toby's campaign site. And he's back. We got him back.
Sorry about
Did you
that.
get a phone? Did you get a phone call?
No, actually, I had an alarm set to tell me at 9 o'clock because I actually go work overnights. So, as a counselor at a mental institute.
Oh, so we've kept you this long.
Yep. So yeah. Okay.
So we'll wrap this up. Yeah, I was just telling people they could find you at Mayor.
Mankato Mayor, MANKATO MAYOR.
Okay.
Either
.org and .com.
Yep, either one.
And are you looking for volunteers to door knock?
Yes, I am. We're looking at some Saturday mornings. You can find that events on Facebook. We have our door knocking. So this weekend we are not doing door knocking, but the following weekend, the 6th, I believe, the Saturday morning, we'll be doing door knocking throughout neighborhoods in Mankato.
And I'll ask it this way. Would you be opposed to having people who could help you saturate communities, even if it wasn't necessarily an organized Saturday?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Saturate neighborhoods. Happy to have them do it.
You would so it wouldn't necessarily just have to be on a Saturday that you have planned.
Exactly. Any day of the week, happily let you saturate neighborhoods. I've
And
got flyers.
And for my gun-loving friends out there, who is pretty much everybody who watches my show, they can also check out your gun shop.
Yep, MankatoGuns.com.
And TC may have to make a trip.
Oh yeah.
to go over and try out one of Mankato Guns' AR platforms.
Oh yeah, we they're actually really nice ARs.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So
I guarantee you, no matter how nice they are or aren't, TC can probably not afford something that nice. But anyway, you've got to get ready to go to work because you work overnight doing counseling in a treatment facility, and that says a lot about your character right there. I know it's a job, but it still takes a particular type of character to be able to do that. So, Toby, I really appreciate your time. I'm pleasantly enthused, not just surprised, pleasantly enthused with our conversation, and I think we'll be adding this into the Libertarian Lowdown conversation.
Oh, great.
On my channel. And if there's any updates or anything else that we can do to encourage people to give you some support over there in Mankato between now and Election Day, you let me know.
All right, perfect.
I really appreciate it.
If you want to support me and you want to just do something that's costs nothing and takes a few seconds, just click on MankatoMayor.com because everybody who clicks on it kind of boosts me up a little higher in Google.
You mean the algorithm works?
Yeah. Well, Google's algorithm can work. Facebook algorithm is currently beating me. So.
Well, we can get around that.
Yeah.
Well, and everybody make sure you like, comment, and share this video. And if you haven't subbed to my channel yet, make sure that you do. Toby, you get out of here and go get to work.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have a great night. Good luck. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Lots of good answers. And these are the kind of answers you'd be looking for somebody who wants to be a public servant in your neck of the woods, whether it be here in Minnesota or like my friend Mike, who's watching, Mike Arthur, who's I'd say gun nut. He's just a nut. But Jose is watching, and I know he's a nut. John is watching. I definitely know he's a nut. And I don't, this other individual who I don't know him well enough to know if he's a nut, but he asks questions that would get him qualified as a nut for just daring to ask a question that goes against the narrative. Go check out MankatoMayor.com, MankatoMayor.org, or MankatoGuns.com. Support Toby one way or another. I'll tell you right now, I support him just because of what he said, and I'm really thankful that Derek had posted about Toby. Mankato needs a change of leadership, and Toby is the guy from what I can tell. So, folks, I want to tell you once again, head over to my Subscribe Star if you like the content. Help me keep these things going. Minnesota Black Robe Regiment on podcast on Subscribestar. Multiple levels of support there. You can order coffee. You can order merchandise. If you like what you're hearing and seeing, let me know. I'd love to hear your feedback, and I'd love to have your attendance at Subscribestar. And I really want to thank all of the subscribers on Subscribestar who have continued to help me be able to keep things going. I really want to thank my friends over at the Arden Sales Group for continuing to be supportive of the show, because we are fighting against the narrative. Not just the leftist narrative, but the status quo rhino type narrative of the Minnesota GOP as well. And everybody knows I am not politically affiliated officially right now. I am not officially affiliated with the Republicans. I'm darn sure not affiliated with the DFL, and I'm not part of the Libertarian Party of Minnesota. I'm out here looking for candidates who are going to do the right thing. And you heard Toby tonight. If you listen to this, he is willing to tie funding for law enforcement in Mankato to constitutional continuing education, as well as putting other linchpins in that, because improving policing improves local governance, period. And you improve policing by holding them to the Constitution all the time. That's how you improve policing. That's how you improve the way this city, state, the county state, the state, and the federal state improve. And Toby is willing to practice nullification. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, is a phenomenal position for anybody who's running for that kind of office, that elected servant's position. As always, ladies and gentlemen, fight for your liberties. It belongs, you know what? Hold on just one second. To my friends in the Gulf Coast area, hoping and praying that you guys are safe, that you're doing what you need to do to take care of yourselves and your neighbors, because you are the first line of defense in these situations. So please take care of yourselves. Be safe as much as you can. Make good decisions, and let us know if there's anything that we can do to help you out, because moments like this are where America has to come together, where the Republic shines, as there are moments like this. Because I'm not going to look at my neighbor and say, hey, I can't help you, you're a Democrat. I can't help you, you're a Republican. I can't help you, you're a Libertarian. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care what your socio-cultural, political worldview is. In these moments, what I care about is how can I help? And that's what we should be getting back to. That's the epitome of volunteerism. And that's where we should all be. My friends, fight for your liberties. They are yours. Fight for your freedom. It belongs to you. And until next time, Sic Semper Tyrannis.
We are going for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.